Okay, it's 5 after. Let's go ahead and get started. We are recording this, so anyone who's not able to attend, we're going to be posting it online so they can watch the video later and email us if any questions if they have. Your cameras and microphones are muted, but you can put questions in the chat box. At the end, if we have time, we'll unmute you if you still have any questions that you'd like to ask outside of the chat box. But first, let's start off with some real quick staff introductions. I'm Amanda Swanson. I've been with the Division of Agriculture for about 12 years now. I oversee the grant and marketing section, and we work on the specialty crop block grants, the micro grants for food security, and we have a new grant this year, the Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Grant. So today we are presenting on the specialty crop block grant application. With that, Mary, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Mary Rowland and I'm the Grants Administrator for Division of Agriculture. I have been here for a year and 2 months.
You've been with the state for a while though, right, Mary?
Yes, I've been with the state for 18 years.
Yeah.
And hi, my name is Christy Short. I am also within the grants team here at Division of Ag. I've been here for a year.
And Tony?
Hello, I'm Tony Straight. I'm with the marketing and grants team here. I have been with DNR for under a year, but I've been with the state for over 12. And my position is a DNR specialist too.
All right, great. So let's go ahead and get started. Feel free to enter your questions in the chat box and we'll try to address them as we go through. Mary, you want to go ahead and start?
All right, so this is going to be covering the specialty crop block grant. Next slide. We will be giving an overview of the specialty crop block grant program, the application timeline, the project requirements, funding priorities, the application review, the reporting requirements, and if there's time left at the end and you have questions you want to put a voice to outside the chat, we will open it up at the end. Next slide. So the specialty crops, those entail fruits, tree nuts, vegetables, culinary herbs and spices, medicinal herbs and plants, nursery, floriculture and horticulture crops, honey, turf grass, tea leaves, annual bedding plants, flowering plants, potted plants, cut flowers, and kelp. You can find a list of these eligible specialty crops on the website at the bottom there. Next slide. The following are not specialty crop block grants, and they're ineligible to submit an application for. Those are grains, dairy, livestock, eggs, corn, hay, sugar beets, hemp. Next slide. So the funding does come from USDA, the federal government. They are under the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program. We apply for those funds as a division from Division of Agriculture, and we grant those funds to you. Next slide. So a few things that are new, we want to remind you that direct costs are no longer allowed. There is no match requirement or a recommendation. So there could be minor changes. We just received some of those minor changes in the application that we'll be updating our website with. So minor changes should be anticipated throughout the process and throughout the year, such as final report templates and things like that we'll provide you should you receive an award under specialty crop. New things that have come out, the outcomes and indicators have been updated by USDA. So they're specialty crop block grant performance measures. And there's new USDA project profile templates. Those are what we just received. and we'll be updating our website hopefully by the end of today, if not tomorrow. Next slide, please. The application timeline. So the letter of intent is out and it is due by the close of business on February 9th. The full applications, should you receive word that your letter of intent was reviewed and we want to extend the offer of having you submit a full application, is due by April 1st. Uh-oh, what happened? Oh, there it is. Okay. My screen went blank. April 1st.
Sorry
Okay.
about that.
And then it's okay. We will submit the state plan to USDA by May 2nd. Whoa, I'm going down the wrong way. I apologize. Let's back up. The letter of intent is due by February 9th. By March 1st, you'll receive the letter of intent feedback returned to applicants. And then the full applications are due by 5 p.m. on April 1st. By April 12th, final decisions will be made from Alaska to our potential grantees. And then we will submit the state plan by May 2nd. And funds, once we hear back from USDA by late fall, at a date to be determined, the funds will be awarded from USDA. And we will announce final award amounts to our grantees. Next slide. So the types of funds that types of funds to be funded are investigative and research based. They must advance the specialty crop industry. The maximum funding is $60,000 and it is dependent on the project type. The minimum number of producers that it should impact is 5. The maximum duration of the project is 3 years. You should have at least 1 letter of support from the industry in which you are submitting your application under. And an industry professional partner, this is required, and it must be identified in the letter of intent. Next slide. Project requirements. The types of recipients. Potential recipients might include universities, producer groups, extension services, soil and water conservation districts, or schools working with in cooperation with a business or a nonprofit. Projects must enhance the competitiveness of the Alaska-grown specialty crops, sustain farmers' livelihoods, and strengthen local communities. All projects must be wider in scope than just one operation or entity and aim to improve the benefit Alaskan agriculture as an industry overall. Next slide. Some of the funding priorities are food safety, pest and disease control, specialty crop research, including research focused on conservation and environmental outcomes, increasing child and adult nutrition knowledge and consumption of specialty crops, sustainability, developing new and improved seed varieties and specialty crops, improving efficiency and reducing costs in distribution systems. There is a survey for you to take as well, and it is on our grants website. Next slide. Full application. In your full application, you'll fill out your project title and summary, your project purpose and your work plan, the duration of your project. And again, that can be up to 3 years. The expected measurable outcomes, your project partner, and a budget. Next slide. Your summary
Okay.
should be 200. Oh, go ahead.
I saw we had a new person join on, so your microphone and video is muted. If you have any questions, though, again, feel free to put it in the chat box. And at the end, if we have additional time, we will unmute you so you can ask questions at the end. And Mary, did you want me to take over? You want to keep going?
I can do this one, and then if you want, you can come on after this slide.
Sounds great.
Okay. So in your summary should be 250 words or less. Your outline, including the applicant organization, include the project's purpose, deliverables, and expected expected outcomes, a description of the general tasks, activities to be completed during the project period to fulfill this goal. In your project purpose, the issue, problem, or need to be addressed by the project. Identify your project objectives. And just kind of ask yourself, does this project continue efforts of a previously funded specialty crop block grant project? Is the project self-sustaining? And are there other funding sources? Next slide. Amanda's going to take over from here.
Okay, so like Mary was mentioning earlier, we really want to stress that the purpose of the specialty crop block grant is to benefit the specialty crop industry as a whole. So the grant funds from this project are not like to put towards your production or your input costs for your farm or something that you want to build for your own farm production. The intent of the grant is really to help industry as a whole. So when you're developing your project concept, you'll want to think about, who are the beneficiaries? Do I have any project partners or, a group of farmers that I could partner with on this activity? Do we get any new research or data from this grant project that can help industry as a whole, either, produce more, or maybe you have like a market access project that you want to work on, something in that realm. So again, we want to stress it's not for your farm input costs. So if you need funding for that, we do have a loan program here through the division where you can apply for an annual operating loan or a loan to purchase equipment or to purchase property. So this grant is specific to helping develop the industry as a whole. So when you're looking at your grant project, you want to look at your potential impact. Who are the beneficiaries? How many beneficiaries are you going to have? And what is the potential economic impact? So is this going to help increase sales for a specific commodity? Is it going to help you access new markets? And it can be both domestic and international or national. Or in your own local community, is it going to benefit that industry? So like if you look at a particular commodity like rhodiola and you want to do a research project on rhodiola, then how many producers is your research project going to benefit? You also have to identify your expected measurable outcomes, and USDA does provide a guide on this, and in the application you'll select which outcomes your project scope is hoping to achieve. So you'll want to make sure that they're distinct, that they're quantifiable, that you can measure your outcomes and indicators, and that is something that you're going to be able to monitor and collect data on. So USDA provides a whole list of outcomes and indicators that you select in your application. We recommend that you select between 2 to 3, because any that you select, you then have to report on for following years. So annual and final reports. So the more you select, the more you have to report on. So you don't want to overdo it by selecting too many, but you do want to make sure that your project is going to have some measurable outcomes. So we kind of recommend, between 2 to 3 would be good. And then that's something that you can, keep up with reporting on each year in your reports. I do want to, real quick before we move on to the next slide, also clarify in the application, you'll have to identify your objectives. And the objectives sometimes get confused with the outcomes. So you want to make sure the objectives are more like what goals you hope to achieve. And and so it's more like goal setting for what you hope to accomplish with your project. And then your outcomes are more like the measurable data that you're going to accomplish with the grant. So all projects, you're required to have partner support. So industry professional as a partner on the project is required. You have to have letters of support from your project partners. That's a requirement and includes contact information. And it's expected that the projects will also have the support of other industry organizations, groups of farmers, and individual specialty crop producers. So when you're working on developing your letter of intent, and if you get invited to do the full application, start reaching out to, your other people, especially crop producers, universities, our plant materials center, your soil and water conservation districts. So reach out to the ag resources that you have in your area. And letters of support from industry members are strongly encouraged. So a letter of support from a project partner is required, and letters of support from industry members are encouraged. As part of the application and in the letter of intent, you'll have to identify a budget table. So there's different categories here for your expenses. You can pay personnel cost, like if you're hiring somebody who's going to be conducting the project, like whether it's research or like a market access project. If there's going to be any travel related, like, such as, attending a conference or a training, any equipment or supplies that you need to purchase, any contractual, if you need to hire out to somebody to complete a portion of the project, like say you want to work with a university, you're going to pay them some contractual costs to do some research for you. That would be an example of contractual. So you'll want to make sure that you visit the USDA Agricultural Market Service General Terms and Conditions. They have a really detailed list of what are eligible expenses and what aren't. So before you submit your application, make sure you review what you put in the budget table, because you'll also have to do a justification for each category and make sure that it is an eligible expense for USDA for your grant project. So there are some things that are not allowed, like, purchase of general use equipment. It has to be equipment that's going to be specific to the project. So these are examples of the outcome measures that I mentioned earlier. USDA has a list here. Again, you'll want to select, you can select one, that's the minimum, but we recommend between 2 to 3, probably definitely no more than 3, because then again, that's a lot that you're having to report on each year. So does your project increase consumption and consumer purchasing of specialty crops? Does it increase access to specialty crops and expand specialty crop production and distribution? Does it increase food safety knowledge and processes? Does it improve pest and disease control practices? Will it develop new seed varieties or new specialty crops? Does it expand on specialty crop research and development, previously conducted? So you can't repeat a project that's been previously done, but you can expand on a project that was previously completed and funded through specialty crop. And does it improve the environmental sustainability of specialty crops? So there's a quick guide. USDA put together a quick guide that has a lot of examples. So I really encourage you to take a look at that, because that will kind of help explain these more and give you some examples and some ideas of how you can apply these to your project that you want to complete. So this is the scoring breakdown. So these are competitive grants. All the grant applications will be reviewed by a review committee that is external from the Division of Agriculture staff. And this is what the kind of breakdown for the score is going to be. So you get 5 points for having a complete application. You give 20 points for identifying your project purpose. Your up to 20 points for external project support. Again, the more project that you're, or more support that your project has, the more points that you're going to be awarded. Impact and outcomes to the specialty crop industry, you get 28 points for that. So that's really vital to the grant application. So that's why it's weighed so heavily on the points. Budget, is it reasonable, for the project type? So we can give grants up to 60,000, but that might not kind of be reasonable for the type of project that you want to do. Like say you want to do a 1-year school project developing, curriculum for specialty crops in school, and it's just going to be a 1 year. 60,000 probably is not going to be a reasonable budget for a project like that. So it's probably going to be a lot smaller in scope, which means a smaller budget. So you want to make sure that the budget is going to be feasible, and that it falls within the AMS allowable expenses. There's 2 points for a work plan. And also if you've had past project performance with us, if you had good past project performance with us, you get 5 points. If you had no previous project performance with us, you'll automatically get that 5 points. If your project is selected for an award and approved by USDA, then you'll be expected to get into your grant agreement contract by end of September. They run on the timeline for that is generally September 30th, 2024 to September 29th, 2027. So these are 3-year grant projects. Again, you can select to do a shorter project if just depending on what your project scope is. So you can do a 1-year project, 2-year project, or a 3-year project. Depending on what the project is, sometimes we have people who will submit an application and they've only, requested 1 year. But we look at the scope of the project, everything they're hoping to accomplish. Sometimes we'll give them feedback and say, actually, it might be best if you request 2 years to complete this project, because you want to make sure that you allow yourself enough time to complete all the, goals and objectives and the outcomes for your project. We do allow extensions. If like say you take 2-year project and you're like, we had a lot of issues, especially when we had COVID. We had a lot of projects that ran into challenges with completion, and so people needed an additional 1-year extension. So that is an option, but you want to make sure at the beginning you're setting yourself up enough time to complete the project. These are reimbursable grants, so we give 25% of upfront to start the project. You do have to provide receipts to account for what that 25% went towards, and then the remaining funds are distributed on a reimbursement basis. And again, like I mentioned before, we have annual report requirements and then final reports. And those templates will be provided to you at the time. Those are USDA templates that we use. So annual performance reports are going to cover basic information like your expenditures to date, what activities you've performed, challenges and developments. You'll also have to provide, a budget on your, like I mentioned already, your expenditures to date, and where you're at with your project completion. And final performance report will be a lot more detailed. You'll have your project impacts and findings, your beneficiaries, any activities you performed, lessons learned, outcomes and indicators, the contact person on the grant, expenditures to date, and any additional information. So say your project was a research project, you'd be submitting your, your research report and your findings along with that final report. And again, because this has to benefit specialty crop industry as a whole, your project information does need to be, shareable with the specialty crop industry. So it can benefit industry as a whole. So like a lot of times for your outcomes and your objectives, USDA is going to want to see how are you disseminating that information to the specialty crop industry. So are you doing a report that we can then share online? Are you going to create a website and where you're going to have this information available to other people in the industry Are you going to create some YouTube videos showing the project that you completed? So you want to think too about how you're going to be able to get the information for your project out to where to the public, to where the industry can benefit as a whole. So I'm going to go ahead and pause there, see if we have any questions. This is the DNR Specialty Crop Block Grant email address. So general questions can go there, or you can also call Mary. Here are a couple website links too with additional information about the specialty crop program. So if anyone wants to raise a hand if they have any questions, and I can go ahead, if you give me 1 second, I can see if I can unmute people too. Okay, so you should be able to use your mics now if you had any questions. Go ahead, Jen.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm wondering, so just to be clear, so the annual reports, they need to be done, do they need to be done at the end of each September?
Yeah, so we usually give a deadline of end of October for the annual reports because our deadline to USDA is end of December. So that gives us, some time because we have to compile everybody's reports together, and it also gives us time to review your report, make sure that all the information that USDA is going to be requesting it is in there. So it gives us time to give some feedback and do a little bit of back and forth if we need to on the reports. But generally, the end of October is when they're going to be due. And the same with the final report. It'll be due end of October.
Great, thank you.
Yep, but for expenditures for your grant, though, you'll have to spend, the expenditures within the performance period. So all of your expenditures will have to be paid out by that September 30th deadline. Has anyone had any issues with opening up any of the applications or the templates on our website? Does anyone have any questions on how to open those? So the template for the full application is a USDA PDF template. It's an interactive template. And so just a quick tip for anyone who is trying to download that, you have to download it and save it to your desktop or to your documents folder first, and then open it from there. If you try to open it directly from the web, you'll get an error message on it. So just remember to hit the little arrow that points downward, download it to your desktop or your documents, and then you open it from your file folder. Oh, go ahead, Jen. You don't have to raise your hand. You can go ahead and ask a question. Jen, did you still mean to have your hand raised?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. So
That's okay.
if you could give me, I think I'm clear, but just to make sure, like a quick example of a direct cost versus an indirect cost. Make sure I'm clear on those.
Yeah, so USDA allows indirect cost on some grant programs, and those are just basically expenses where you might not have an exact amount, noted for. It's usually for some kind of more unknown costs, like personnel that are not directly associated with the grant, that you might have to pay for. So it's not allowable on this grant program. It's only going to be direct costs. So you'll have to show in your budget table, your exact expenses for personnel, fringe, travel, things like that. So if you are starting to get into your project, sometimes things come up, you might have to adjust your budget. Just let us know and we can work with you on that. Usually we can do like a 10% kind of within your original budget to move funds, like say, hey, I need to pay more to contractual instead of equipment or supplies, then just, we can move some of those line items around. If it's going to be anything more than 10% of your overall grant award, then we will have to go to USDA to get an approved amendment on. But just let, Mary and Tony know if you need to update your budget. So we can be flexible. We understand that sometimes things come up when you're in the middle of a project, or you might run into some challenges or developments with the project. So just keep your grant administrator updated with that. Any additional questions? Jen, did you still mean to have your hand raised? Did I address all your questions you had?
Thank you. You did. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's no problem. Just want to make sure. Okay, well, we will go ahead and end the webinar, but if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Questions may come up as you actually start working through the application process. So once again, the email address is the dnr.scbg@alaska.gov. Again, thank you for attending, and we wish you luck on your application. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.